Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. My guest today is editor, writer, general, all-round guy in comics for a long time, though not as long as some of the people we talk to. And you still look younger than me, so like, don't take that as you're old. You clearly started in comics when you were like two, and now you're like 20 something and just hitting your prime. Chris Ryall. How's it
Hey
going,
there.
Chris?
And I did start reading them not long after two. I was probably four or
See,
five. So
see,
technically
there we
that's
go.
true. Yeah.
Hey. And I love that you have a spinner rack. I love when people have their own spinner racks.
It's
I
become a whole
want my
thing
own
for
spinner
me.
rack. Yeah.
But see, during the pandemic, that became my sourdough starter, right? I started categorizing and reorganizing and constantly shuffling and coming up with all these different cover themes I could do and holidays. And so
Right.
it's taken on kind of a life of its own, but it's also led to a book that's coming up. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
is this a
yeah.
book that you can tell us about, or is this a book that's coming up that
Sure.
we're not allowed to hear about yet?
I mean, it hasn't been announced yet, but I've been doing this Substack for a couple of years, and in there I'm
I
always
read
talking
it.
about different. Oh, thank you. But I'm always talking about different themes for the spinner rack. That you could categorize as I started doing like covers with all photo backgrounds or all like smashed and broken logos or all the floating head covers. And so doing that kind of categorization led to an actual covers book that's going to categorize everything in that same kind of way. So yeah, technically it's all just been research for the last
Uh, oh,
few years
uh,
slash lifetime.
you're nerdy OCD the ways I am. I love this. Do you also like organize and reorganize your music or movie collections or
It does. I
anything
mean,
you
there's
care
there's
about?
there are shelves of vinyl back there that are constantly
Good.
also getting that. So yeah,
Yes.
it's not quite as bad as the John Cusack in High Fidelity, but it's not far
No, I
away.
understand. I understand. I understand. But I think that's the point of John Cusack and High Fidelity being that extreme is that we're supposed to be able to look at him and when our loved ones are going, oh, there are other
Yeah,
we can say, no, I'm not that bad.
yeah. Well, and also like a lot of us now end up working from home, or it's spending a lot more time in the home office than we used to, and so I need to keep rotating things to
Yeah.
just have something different to look at.
No, I'm just particularly because I'm at my mom's house right now. I'm thinking all the way back to childhood and like this started with my baseball cards. I couldn't leave them in the binder in one order for like more than a week before I decide that they had to be completely. She's laughing. She can hear me.
But I mean, when you stop actively engaging with the stuff, that's probably when it should go, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. I just I need to reset now because I suddenly got to geek in a way that I wasn't expecting.
No, bring it on.
And I can't wait for that book because that sounds so fun. Um, I want to make certain we talk about though Megalopolis because I finally saw the movie because I was going to be talking to you. I had previously only read the comic and
Oh
loved
wow.
it.
Hmm. Thank you.
Um,
It's hard to find, by the way, that movie.
it is. It is. It is currently available for rental on Plex.
Yeah, whatever Plex is. And I think
It's one
American
of the
Airlines
streaming
you can watch it.
services.
Yeah, and I know Francis screened it on New Year's Day at a bunch of the different Alamo Draft
Right.
House locations.
There are theaters that have had it recently, and I looked at trying to get to it, and I had a podcast recording scheduled,
Yeah.
and I couldn't. Um, I wasn't smart enough to buy it during the brief period that it was like $20 for a digital copy on
Yeah.
Amazon while it was still in the theaters. So yes, it's not very easy to see. And I get the reasons that he's doing that, because he really wants people to see it in the theater and he's both old enough and rich enough and paid for the whole thing so he can make those decisions.
But I think he also likes the idea of doing them as events, sort of like the
Yeah.
Kevin Smith model of, doing the introduction and Q&A, like an in-person
Yep.
kind of thing, just so it becomes like a gathering more than it is just people sitting in silence for a couple hours.
Well, and I think that it's a good movie for that. Because both the movie and the book fall into a category of things that I realize more and more I'm really in a minority in how much I love them, which is the
Hmm.
things that you like, the more you think about them.
I mean, that
Like you
was
can
the
watch it
goal,
that
and
first time
yeah.
through and go, I don't know what that happened, and I don't know if I like it. But then you start going, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. This is brilliant.
I
Um,
equate it to the band Geese, which some people have loved from the start, and others like it takes a lot of listens to kind of try to
the band is
understand what people
you're
like about them.
introducing me to music that I don't know. You said geese,
Yeah, they've
like
been kind of compared
like
to like a 2025 version of the Strokes, kind of the hipster
okay.
Brooklyn band.
Spelled like the animal or with some
Yes,
weird spelling. Okay. I will have
but
to
it is
check
one
them
of those
out.
things where the voice, the vocals and everything takes some easing into. So and I like that. I
Yeah,
like a thing that challenges you. Like
I do.
Megalopolis, when I first read it, I was like, I don't fully understand this, and I think that was good. And that was kind of the reaction he wanted was, you don't have to understand it, but I want you to interpret it the way you think you understand it, which
Well,
was
and
awesome, like totally freeing.
that leads me to my first big question. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with my understanding and have you kind of correct and expand upon it. The way I've understood it is like he gave you the script and you got to like talk to him and maybe you were shown some like pre-production still type stuff, but
I
it
mean, more
wasn't
than
you
that,
got to
really.
see the movie and whatnot. It was go make your thing.
Yeah, and he was still filming the movie when we started
Right.
doing this. So he reached out, asked if I wanted to do this thing, and he said, I don't want an adaptation. I don't want a straight telling of the movie. That's what the movie is. And so I want you to know from the start that you've got the freedom to make this what it needs to be as a graphic novel. And he hasn't really engaged with comics for the last 50 years. He's been doing
Right.
other things, movies and wine and everything else that he's done. But as a kid, he
I
said
can
he
still
loved
imagine
comics.
him in the bathtub with a comic and a glass of
He
wine. He
so
might have engaged with it at one level, at some level.
when I knew he was legit as a fan when he was a kid was he mentioned his three favorites. One was the Phantom.
Okay.
One was Jack Cole's Plastic Man, and then the third one
Okay.
he said he loved was the Heap. And nobody mentions the Heap unless they're a fan of the Heap. That's not one you just kind of rattle off. That's not. It was
Uh,
like
uh,
the Heap was like a Swamp
I
Thing
love that I
precursor.
have to look up the heap.
It was like a swamp monster before Man Thing
No,
and
I
Swamp
see
Thing.
it. I
Yeah.
see it in
But
Airboy
again, it's not one
comics.
of those. It's in Airboy, right? So it wasn't
Yeah.
one of those characters or titles you bring up unless you were actually familiar with it.
Actually reading it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very
so it was
cool.
great. Not only talking old comics and what he liked about them, but also what he wanted this book to be. He's never really done comics. He had there was the Mignola graphic novel adaptation of Dracula, but
Right.
that was done through Universal, and that wasn't a thing he
Right.
had an active hand in. This one,
Right.
like, it was just me and him. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought he would hand it off to a team, and it would be like all the licensed comics I'm used to adapting. Where you deal with teams and groups and levels of approvals. And in this case, there was one person involved, and it was him.
Speaking of
So
which,
yeah,
I was talking to Michael Torma last night, and he said, "Rom, amazing."
excellent. I like it.
So
Yeah, Rom will end up being my version of the heap someday, or maybe it already is. I don't know. Um,
um,
but yeah, so Coppola handed me he gave me an older version of the script, and he said, I don't want you looking at what we're currently doing because things have changed a lot. Like he was working on Megalopolis for 3 decades, and so I
yeah,
didn't get
I mean,
handed
I've
his
heard
first
that the
draft.
first time he mentioned it to Lawrence Fishburne was on the set of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, and he started working on it in earnest in the 80s.
Right,
And he got close to getting it going in the early 2000s. Like he said, he went to ground zero after, not too long after 9/11, shot some B-roll footage because the whole idea was like of the film from the start was sort of the crumbling of the American empire. And it's
right.
changed over the years as like the political structure and everything has kind of influenced the different versions of the story.
Mhm.
But that was always his intent was to look at like where it seems like we're headed and how to avoid that and how to maybe envision a better and different kind of future.
Right.
Like he's very humanist about the whole thing. Like I was like surprised, not surprised, but I don't know the guy, and so
Right.
he was such a thoughtful, sort of deep thinker about the world and where we're headed and what's going on and how to maybe not keep spiraling and all of that. And like as much as the world just feels like it's in this weird, dark, fractured place, he's got this positive view of humanity that he's still kind of pulling for everybody to
Right.
get their shit
Well, I
together
mean,
and yeah.
that definitely comes through to me in both works. Again, I think you and Jacob brought it out even more for me, and I wonder if I would have noticed it as much in the movie if I hadn't read the graphic novel a couple of times. Um, because I also love Jacob's art, like love
Yeah,
Jacob's
Jacob's
art.
amazing. It was funny
I
when we were first batting around art options. Like, I probably sent him like 40 different styles. You can do this, you can do this. Here's
right,
every possible flavor you could ever want. And he goes, pick one. I'm like, oh, okay. Again, because I'm used to, supplying all these samples and having the studio sort of sit in their tribunal and give the big thumbs up or thumbs down. And
right.
Francis was like, I don't know, pick the book or
You're
the
the
artist you
comic
want and go.
maker. I'm making the
Yeah,
movie. You're making the
yeah.
comic.
I mean, and it did. It took me a while to get used to like having that trust and freedom. I mean,
Freedom.
it was great, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not the way these things are usually done.
No, no. I mean, it sounds like an amazing process,
He
but
had me out to the set a couple times, so I
okay.
I
So
got
you
to
did
see
get
the
to
scenes
see
he
the
comes to.
set.
Yeah, and I went
Okay.
in there with my marked up screenplay, and we sat down in his hotel room, and I ran through all my questions, and he goes, "I don't know. What do you think?" I'm like, "Oh, right." He doesn't. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to spoon feed this to me, and so again,
This
like it
is
was.
this is Chris Ryall and Jacob Phillips Megalopolis. My name's on it because it'll sell better that way, and because I have the story credit.
He actually didn't want his name on it to
He
that
didn't
degree.
want
He
his name
didn't.
on it.
He didn't want to call it Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis because he goes, "It's not mine. It's yours." I'm like, well,
I
it's
love that.
yours, and we're just
I
yeah.
love that. But
So,
of course, the publisher was like,
oh my god, yeah, it wasn't even a question. They're like, "Can you make
what?
his name bigger?" Yeah,
Couldn't we just make it Francis Ford Coppola's and leave Megalopolis off?
yeah, yeah. What do you mean your guys' names need to be on the book and art? No, just make a giant cover with his name.
Does the cover actually need to be a picture from the book, or could it be a picture of Coppola?
Yeah, I know.
Or maybe The Godfather. People don't know the difference. If you make it Vito Corleone, people will think that's The Godfather.
You mean the movie he first referred to when he was talking to me? He goes, I once made this picture involving gangsters, and people seem to like it. And I'm like, I'm aware, Francis Coppola. I've, I, I've heard of your little gangster movie.
I may have quoted it a few times at
Yeah,
parties.
I don't know if it was humility or just like sort of downplaying it because of the weight of it. Like, I almost didn't want him to reference Godfather and Apocalypse Now because I'm like, don't remind me that you're that guy because
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing in the room with you, and if I start thinking about it too much, like I'm gonna collapse from sort of the weight of
I,
my own expectations.
I mean, one of the questions I'm going to be asking you later that I'll preview here, just because in some ways you may be answering it in the best way to do it, is like being part of the comics world has made my life feel utterly and totally surreal as I like have people that I hang out with or talk with or text with that like also in the back of my head, it's like, but you did this.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's almost hard to know which I like better when they're completely open about doing that and that it almost makes it feel smaller, or if they are like it comes up and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know how to talk anymore because you did that."
yeah. I didn't need those reminders because I'm like, oh, I don't know why we're sitting here talking about goofy comics when you should be talking about, I don't know, movies with Robert De
I
Niro or
mean,
something.
the question is about a surreal experience that you've had. So try to think of a non Francis Ford Coppola
Mm.
for later. Um, but you're reminding me of I talked. I mean, one of the places where this question really solidified is when I talked to Matt Wagner, and his was when he got asked to do the Django Zorro, He's like, yeah,
Hmm.
whatever. Quentin's people never want to do it. And then they came back and they're like, oh no, Quentin's people are all over. And he's like, yeah, it's never going anywhere. And it's like, oh, we heard from Quentin. He wants you to meet with him to write the screenplay. He's like, yeah, whatever. It'll never actually get scheduled. Yeah, he wants you to come down this weekend. He's like, I was literally at the door, about to hit the doorbell, fully expecting to hear a butler go, I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson came
Yeah,
by.
yeah.
He and Quentin are mini golfing. But
I
instead,
have my answer to this same
right,
question. Yeah.
instead, Quentin opens the door and we hung out for the weekend writing. And he's like, so
You
hold your
know,
answer because that's an end
yeah, yeah.
question. But yeah.
I will, but I speaking of Matt Wagner, like I almost had Matt Wagner doing a Dick Tracy comic years ago, and
Oh,
just thinking about how great that would have been. And
that
sometimes
would
these
have been
things just don't
pretty.
come to pass, but man,
Yeah.
that would have been nice.
Yeah. So quickly before we move on to a
Yeah.
storied career, or at least parts of a storied career, we
A
don't have
story
time to
about a
hit them.
career. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. How did you wind up with this project?
Oh, with Megalopolis.
With Megalopolis, yeah. I mean,
I
it
checked
seems
my
like
email.
just you checked your email.
One morning I wake up and there's an email and it's from Francis Ford Coppola, and I figured at first when I just saw the name that it was a spam for like his winery or something,
Right.
and I open it
You
and
mean the
it
one that he
says
sold to make the movie?
no, he still has the other one, but
Oh,
I
okay.
figured it was one of those two. Yeah. But and it just said, I am told I have this graphic novel story. In fact, I actually ran the email. He let me run the email in the advanced reader copy edition that we've produced, just so people would see how it got started. So I don't have it in
Right.
front of me to quote from it, but it was essentially saying, "You came recommended to me as somebody I want to make a graphic novel centered around my movie. I was told you're the right person to do that. Is that true? Here's what it's about. Would you like to talk more?" And so as it came to pass, it was Robert Rodriguez, who's kind of a mutual acquaintance. I mean, he's friends of
Okay.
Francis's, and I know him a little bit through Kevin Eastman. So I guess Francis was telling Robert that he wanted to do a graphic novel. Robert's like, "Oh, you got to call Chris." Um, and so,
I mean, and you just listed like, and this is one of those weird places because I am a comic guy more than a movie guy through and through. But of the three names that you just dropped, the one that I care the least about is Kevin Eastman. Don't get me wrong, I love Kevin Eastman, but like Robert Rodriguez is like on my short list for favorite directors ever. So
oh
it's like,
yeah, I mean,
oh yeah, Robert Rodriguez recommended me to Francis Ford Coppola. It's like, how am I now the one talking to you?
yeah, it makes no sense. It's funny because I once did I did a Machete comic.
Okay.
But it turned out, and it was going to be a whole series, but it turned out that Robert was never informed by the studio. So when
Oh,
he found out, he goes, "Hey, I own that character. Like Sony can't go making comics without me." And so the series went away, and I was like, "Oh God, I don't even know him yet." And I hadn't met him at that point. And I go,
right.
"Man, I'm pissed off Robert Rodriguez, and I love the guy. Desperado still like looms so large for me and everything."
Yeah.
But then like we met a few years later through Kevin, and he's like, "Oh no, no, it was just a thing with the studio. I thought the
Okay.
comic was fine, but I can't let them run off and do stuff without me being involved with characters that I own." And
Yeah,
so
no, he seems to be that type of guy where he knows the difference between creatives and suits.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I
Um,
tried to pull together with him a whole Rodriguez universe kind of comic,
oh, that
bringing
would be
in
amazing.
um, the mariachi character and
Right?
Machete and all these different characters into one thing, but it got complicated because he did some of his films through Sony, some are Dimension, so it just
Right.
lawyers always you know
You
spoil our
mean
fun
entertainment lawyers are difficult? Sorry, Britt. You're the
occasionally,
exception.
occasionally. Yeah.
One of my regular listeners is an entertainment lawyer, so I
Hmm.
have to exclude him. Britt, you're not a pain.
Oh, I
All
mean,
the
at
other
times
entertainment
yeah.
lawyers, though.
No, no, at times they'll enable stuff you never think could come to pass
That's
either.
true.
So if they're on your
That's
side,
true.
then yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's just so cool.
But so anyway,
I
so
did
I
I
I
didn't
talked to him a
expect you
little
to
bit.
make me tongue
No,
tied.
no. Well, so
I'm
I
generally
talked to him
better at not getting tongue tied, Chris.
well, so this leads to my tongue tied story, which is where, we set up a call. And so the call was going to be me and his team. So I thought to discuss the project. And so the Zoom opens, and I'm sitting there in my little space in the garage, like this little claustrophobic area. And then it's like this expansive cabin in the woods. And then all of a sudden he steps in a frame and sits down. And I'm like, holy shit. I was like, well, I didn't expect you, Mr. Coppola. I thought it'd be your team. And he goes, I'm my team. You and me are making this book, no one else. I'm like, oh. So that took a couple minutes
Oh,
to get used to.
that was not the meeting I prepared for.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like I'm used to the studio things where
Right.
you never get to talk to the person who starts the idea. It's always, the different levels and layers of people that, go
Right.
get approvals on their end. But yeah, it's never that kind of one-on-one, collaboration.
Now, I know that you've done a lot of license work. Have you actually done any Hollywood work as well? Or,
Oh, you mean
I mean,
on the
have you done
adaptation
like
side or
screenwriting or, I mean, I know
hmm.
that you've done adaptations. I know that you've
Oh yeah.
done license work of, but have you done, because you're in Southern California, aren't you? So I mean,
Yeah,
you're
so
in that
I've
area
never
where there are plenty of people who kind of play on both sides of the
I've
street
not yet gotten
a little.
anything made. Like my Zombies versus
Okay.
Robots project that I do with Ashley Wood was optioned and eventually purchased by Sony, who's been trying to make a movie for better part of 10 plus years. And I don't know if it'll ever happen, but at least that's sitting with them. And during the pandemic, I sold a TV show to Paramount that we got as far as writing the pilot script, and it's kind of just sitting, waiting to see if we can actually activate it. So
This
yeah,
is
nothing that's
how,
been made
for
yet.
from the people I know who play on both sides of the aisle, this is exactly how it works. So I count that as you play at least a little on both sides of the aisle because you have submitted a script and they haven't gone ha 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 and dropped it in the shredder.
No, they bought it, in fact. So that's
This is what
something.
I'm saying.
And I was a EP on the Lock and Key series.
Okay.
Um, but to the extent where I was, reading scripts and kind of suggesting notes to make sure that we didn't go too far afield from the comic story, but I wasn't like
Right.
actively involved in, the casting or a lot of stuff that sort of the day-to-day executive producers manage.
Right. Right. I mean, I'm
So I
trying to
guess
put this in.
tangentially, but not anything
Yeah. No,
directly.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm trying to figure out the simplest way to ask this question. What makes comics cooler to you, or are you slumming it? I don't think you're slumming it. That was that
God,
the
no,
slumming it
no.
part was a joke. You don't hire Shelley Bond, which will be where we go next, if you're
Mm.
slumming in comics. Um, so like you're in Hollywood, you clearly have both the skills and at least some connections where if you really wanted to push that way, you could, but you make comics, and I love that you make comics, but I always love to hear why people love comics because I know why I love comics, but I'd like to
I
hear
mean,
why
they
you.
were they were they were effectively my first love, and so
Right.
they've been a part of my entire life. But I think more than that, like the making of them is, I don't know if I stressed it enough, but when I've done licensed comics in the past, it involves every possible layer of complication and studio approval and people that are weighing in that have no business weighing in and all of that stuff. And when you make a comic, you write a script and you work with an artist and the artist draws it and there's a team of people you can count on one hand for the most part, and
Right.
so it's probably the purest form of the kind of storytelling that I love, like the most pure version of marrying visuals and words and everything else that comics offers in such a unique way, as opposed to doing stuff by committee. I mean, certainly a lot more money over there, but like
Yeah.
there's really nothing more gratifying than just, I don't know, making a comic with your friends and getting that thing
Yeah.
done and out. And like I've been trying to get that TV show going for better part of 5 years now. Comic, you can start it in January and
I
release it in the
I
summer.
I
And
I have a friend who finished making a TV series, like the whole thing,
mm,
2 years ago, and it's not out yet, and he only kind of knows when it will come out.
mm. I mean, even Francis, the
Right,
stuff Francis is paying for himself. Like it took him
right,
35, 40 years to get to a point where
exactly.
he made and released it. So yeah, I mean, and also like I've never met better, more inspiring people in my life than people I met in comics.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, aside from just I also think the medium has more flexibility. I think you can do more with a comic than you can do in a movie. Um,
So
but
yes, just to kind of punctuate that, years ago, this sounds like a name drop, but I'm only mentioning it because it's the person I was talking to. I was adapting a story with Stephen King, and he was telling me, I was doing this book at DC, the vampire thing. He was writing the backup stories for Scott Snyder's American Vampire,
right.
and one of the editors at DC was like, "Hey, old man, we don't use thought balloons anymore." I guess he wrote in his first draft he had thought balloons, and do you like that I held it up? So this is a thought balloon up here.
I love it. For those of you listening at home, he held his
Yeah,
hand up to show,
yeah.
and now I'm holding my hands up to show him that I know the thought balloon that he held up.
But so this editor told Stephen King, who had accomplished quite a bit by then, had written some comics before that. Anyway, it said, "Hey, we don't do thought balloons anymore. That's old style. Like we do captions now. We do interior monologues. We don't." And I was just like, imagine being so presumptuous that you first of all tell Stephen King how to write a story, but more than that, like why are you removing one of the cool, unique tools that comics offers?
Yes,
It's the
yes.
marrying of
I
visual
mean,
and words and word balloons
yes,
and sound effects and all
yeah.
those
I
things.
mean, one of the coolest comic conventions is literally called Thought Bubble.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, he's so lucky that at least from what I've heard, Stephen King is impeccably polite
yeah, yeah.
because I think if I'd been Stephen King, I would have turned to it and said, "Fuck you, brat. Let me talk to your boss."
Well, it's so the comic I was adapting with him, it was a story that he and Joe Hill wrote together called Throttle.
Right,
It was like a tribute to Richard Matheson's Duel, but in the
right.
adaptation, I purposely put in some thought balloons just as a way to like, no, no, you can still do this. Just do it right. That there are times when people have tried to bring back thought balloons and they just don't quite understand how to make it work right, and you can tell. But if it's done
Right.
effectively, like every part of what comics offers is useful if it's done right.
Right. Right. I mean, we drifted away from them in large part because an incredibly well-known writer that will remain nameless, though his partner Jack Kirby will say that he has a lot of trouble remaining nameless. Um, like to use them for everything, and it became a little bit. I mean, there are some of those Spider-Man comics with Romita where it's like, is he talking or thinking?
Well, this is one of the things that like comic nerds talk about it at conventions when we all get together. Is like, when did they fall out of favor? Like, when did they become
Right.
uncool? And I think it was the Wolverine miniseries with Frank Miller and Chris Claremont
Possibly. That
because it was
sounds
all interior monologue, and
right.
so effectively done that I think everybody's like, all right, let's do that now.
Right. But like and like comics isn't the only place that has this problem. So like I don't want to beat it too hard, but like something else being good doesn't mean the other thing is bad.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like voiceover in a film, like
Right.
it can be done well or it can be Blade
Could be
Runner.
done badly.
Yeah.
The fact that you figured out another way to do it doesn't mean that nobody should ever do it the other way ever
Right.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
Um,
that's the short answer why I like it, just because it
right.
offers all these unique ways
It
of telling a
does.
story. Yeah.
Well, but then the other thing that I was going to add that I thought you'd hit on already is that it still gives you the option to be collaborative.
Oh
Unlike a
yeah.
film, you can make a comic all by yourself. But if you want a collaborative team, if you want that product of multiple imaginations, it still lends itself to that as well. It's not uh there's not one way to make a comic is
No, I mean
something that
I
is
do
really
think
cool as
I
well.
think a cartoonist is probably the purest form of comic making. The same person writing and drawing and doing
Mhm.
everything is. But since most of us can't do that, I will say there's also just a huge thrill in writing a thing, envisioning it in your head, and then you send it off to an artist who's more talented at bringing the visuals to life. And then you get this thing in your inbox and you're like, oh my God, that's so much
Well,
better than I thought.
I mean, as much as I agree that a cartoonist is probably the purest form, um, like I don't know that I agree that the most of the absolute best comics come from one mind. There are definitely a lot of them. Love and Rockets. I think the stuff that Jesse Lonergan is doing solo is still better than
Hmm.
the stuff that he's doing with people right now, but I'm not at all certain that that's going to stay true because
Right.
he's definitely a much stronger artist than overall storyteller, as brilliant as a writer storyteller as he is, you know, and like the stuff that he's done with Mike Mignola, the stuff that he's done with
Yeah.
Portzak Pichet Choate is also brilliant. Did he do a graphic novel with Van Jensen that was even at
Yeah. Yeah.
IDW? Was that while you were there, or was that after you left?
That was after. But yeah, you're
Okay.
right. When you look at like an Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, and they kind of
Mm-hmm.
they're like the artistic equivalent of people that finish each other's sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think they both sort of pull out each other's strengths to such a great
Mm-hmm.
degree that
They're
yeah. So
absolutely greater than the sum of their parts.
yeah,
I've seen Sean Phillips books that Ed Brubaker didn't write. I've read everything Sean Phillips has ever done. He's never better than when he's with Brubaker. I've
yeah,
read
yeah.
everything Brubaker's ever done. He's never better than when he's with Phillips. And actually, this will bring me back to my last Megalopolis point.
Hmm.
They're absolute best when Jacob's coloring them. And my non-popular opinion that I still voice on a regular basis, Jacob is already better than his dad.
I don't. They're. It's funny. They're similar but different. Like you can certainly
Uh-huh.
tell that he's
And I
learned
think he
from
can
his
do
dad, but
anything his dad can do and more. That's why I
it
say
it
he's better than his dad.
it bothered me when he told me like when we were at Megalopolis, he was. I think he turned 28 or something. I'm like,
Right.
come on, man. Like you're that good
I mean, this is
already.
like when you realize that the first issue of Love and Rockets, Jaime was 21 and Beto was like 24, and some of the stories had been drawn 3 years earlier.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
what? Fuck you.
No, I mean Jacob's amazing. Like, and I everything he does since this book, like I just think has gotten better and better. Like
Yeah.
I got first issue of his new Vertigo series, and it's
Yeah.
great. Like he's
Yeah,
amazing.
no, Chris sent me that a while. Well, and actually, one of the reasons I was able to really twist Chris's arm to send me that was I was one of their Patreon backers. So I saw because that series started as when the pandemic hit and pencils went down on That Texas Blood, they started a Patreon
Mm,
telling that story. So there have been like 10 or 12 pages of it out on their Patreon for ages. And then
yeah.
pencils went back up, and I'm like, but Chris, I want more of that one.
Well, see, I
I
was like,
love
guys, can you do less of
that
that
Texas
and do more
blood.
Megalopolis? Because I think Megalopolis ended up becoming a thing that just not
It took a lot of his
overwhelmed,
time.
but just consumed him for a while. Yeah, because it
No,
was a lot. I mean, it's
I remember when he
160
finished it,
pages.
and yeah, I remember when he finished it and put out the picture of the stack of pages and said, "It's finally done."
I don't think either of us thought it was going to be like a 2 year project, but that's kind of what it
Right,
became.
right. What was it like working with Jacob? I mean, other than the fact that it's just wrong that he's so young.
Yeah, well, that, but he's also so good, And I mean, he
Yeah,
would send these pages just in black and white, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, those are great," And he does the gray washes and everything. But then when you
right.
finally get the color version, like he does so much good
Hmm.
finishing work with his colors, and his colors are so unique and cool. And it was impressive to me that he didn't see frame one of the movie. I got to visit the set a couple times. I saw like probably three or four different edits and rough cuts along the way. He saw none of that. So
He
he
didn't see
only
any
worked
of
off
it.
descriptions and concept art.
Oh,
And he was
wow.
drawing these scenes. And I'm like, that's exactly what it looks like in the movie. But he couldn't know that. He just,
Right.
I mean, it was probably just that the script was so effective that he,
Right.
yeah, but no, I mean, just that he was nailing the
I mean,
scenes and the
there's your
characters.
way to pat yourself on the back, Chris. I wrote the
Yeah, yeah.
script so effectively. He knew what to do.
Right, right, right. But no, he was just that good, and so it was
Yeah.
a thrill that it took that long because then it just meant there was going to be great pages coming in for a sustained 2 year period.
Did you hear that he moved out of his studio though?
No,
I loved the compartment studio.
mm.
Apparently he moved
I,
into a new house and there's space for the studio in the house now. So he gave up the compartment studio too. that was one of my more fun Zooms. This is one of those things. The people who were listening, I think we wound up talking about it, but talking to Jacob Phillips about the fact that his studio was in a compartment, two compartments down from the barbershop compartment,
Mm,
across the way from the 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 coffee shop compartment in just a like shipping yard in
yeah.
Manchester that had
But
been
I mean,
turned into small businesses was one of the coolest things I ever heard.
although the good thing is that the fact they moved to a bigger space means comics are going pretty well for them. So that's a
Yes,
good sign.
yes, it is. It's a great
Yeah.
sign. It's a
Yeah.
great sign. It's just again, like I feel like there needs to be a comic set in the converted shipping yard village,
I mean, that feels like a scene out of a coming Brubaker Phillips graphic novel at some point. So,
doesn't it?
uh,
Or Condon Phillips. Could be Condon Phillips.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They're doing some good stuff. Um,
Jacob does his best
let's
work with Chris's. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I mean, he does great work with you. So yes, he does his best work with Chris's, but I don't think he's ready to go all in, only working with Condon. And I know Condon's not ready to go all in, only working with Jacob, but I could see 20 years from now when Brubaker and Phillips have retired, there still being lots of Condon Phillips
Mm,
stuff coming out. They mesh
yeah. Agree.
really, really, really well.
Yeah.
Um, I'm so happy that they somehow found it. I mean, because Chris is in New Jersey, Jacob's in Manchester. Like the craziness of them connecting and making independent comics together is in and of itself just one of those little miracle happenings.
Well, it's funny because I also like looking at all the work those guys are doing together and the way Jacob's been blowing up. Like, I don't know that there'd ever be another time where I could get Jacob to do a book like Megalopolis. So it was kind of like with
Yeah,
Zoe
you got him
Thurgood
at
doing
just
the
that.
graphic novel of Rain. You know, like
Right.
when Zoe did that book, like she
Oh,
was just on the cusp of blowing up and doing like
yep.
she doesn't need anybody else at this point.
Oh, she's
Um,
brilliant.
but yeah, getting
She's
her right before she was in a spot where she could just move on and sort of never look back and never need to
right.
work with anybody else if she didn't want to was just pretty good timing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so like talk to me about the difference between the writing role and the editing role. And at some point talk to me about like how you found out Shelley was available and how many negative seconds it took you to pick up the phone and go, if DC's too dumb to have this person on payroll, I'm going to put her on mine. Because it appears that you knew before she did almost.
I mean, yeah, I don't remember where I heard. I don't know if it was somebody internal or not, or if it was just
Right.
like I happened to catch right when the Bleeding Cool article went up or something like that.
Right.
But just there shouldn't be a world where a Shelley Bond is not, gainfully employed in comics. And it just struck
Right.
me as so ridiculous that they would lose someone like that after losing Karen, after losing Stewart. It's like everybody that built Vertigo into what made people love Vertigo was now out. And so, well, if
Right.
she's not able to do what she did there, then I want her to come do it here. Well, there, I'm no longer there either. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
at the
no,
time. So
but like, but the way I understand it, at least from reading it in the graphic novel, you guys didn't know each other well. So I
mm,
mean, it was like you knew her work, and you went, "Wait, she's available." Boom.
yeah, I mean,
And this is
I
a
knew her
this is a
from,
business
yeah,
that often has a lot to do with relationships. So like,
yeah, and I
big
didn't
pat on
really
the
have one.
back for going.
Yeah, and I didn't really have one with her. I mean, we probably
Right.
met at a convention or something like that, but I didn't know her other than knowing her work, which to me was what mattered the most. I'm like, every good Vertigo book, like her name is on, and I like her taste and from afar, and so I would just want to see if,
Yeah,
up close, if she would have.
when I feel like making her squirm a little bit, I remind her that like comics as we know it right now owes more to her taste than any other thing.
Yeah, and it's funny, like she's also the type of editor that doesn't exist too much nowadays, somebody who's not afraid to get in there with like as she always
Yeah.
talks about her red pen and just
Hmm.
push the writer to do 7 drafts of a script. Whereas in a lot of cases now, like schedules are so tight and it's so hard to just get stuff out the door that you feel like it almost becomes more of a factory. Just keep things moving and don't get in the way. Where she's like, no, no,
Right.
I'm going to get in the way and I'm going to make this thing better, no matter
Better.
how much time it takes. And I can see how a big publisher doesn't have the ability to wait on that.
Which always drives me up the wall because, like, you'd think that the big publisher had more ability to.
I know it's like
Like,
you guys have 70 other books coming out this month. Like
well,
if
but
this one,
beyond that, you have the Disney or the Warner Brothers war chest. Like, you can pay for it to be done and then solicit it rather than having, like, the example I always use, like, DC built their entire year around Doomsday Clock, and then it
hmm,
fell off schedule. And I'm like, how did the book fall off schedule? How did you build your entire year around a book that wasn't done? Why on
well, because
earth would you build your entire year around a book that's not done?
I mean, I can tell you why. Because you get excited about a thing, you think this book's going to sell a ton, get it on the schedule as soon as you possibly can, so we can sell a ton of copies as soon as we possibly can. Or you go, well, we got 6 issues banked. That's more than enough head of steam. We're going to be fine going for, and then something goes wrong, life gets in the way, and it doesn't matter how far out you plan a book, like it still inevitably falls off its schedule by issue 5 or 6, no matter what you do to try to get in the way of that.
But this is where I say that if it's a maxi series, if you know it's going to be 12, just finish it.
Yeah.
Just finish it. I mean, that's what they do in Hollywood. The
I'm telling
movie's
you, I
often
don't.
done before it gets announced. That's what they do with
Yeah, just
graphic novels. It's often
I know, but
done before it gets announced.
I can just tell you that from my experience, there's usually not the patience to cash
No,
flow 12 full issues. So
the,
it's,
the,
I mean,
the,
there were
the,
times we would sign a big
I
property where we had to get a book solicited on the schedule before we had a creative team in place, and so
yeah, no,
that's when
absolutely.
you're like, you know, you're going to be screwed from the start.
No, I know the realities.
Yeah.
I'm not asking why Chris Ryall, the editor, doesn't get it done. I know why Chris Ryall, the editor, doesn't get it done. What I don't get is why the Warner Brothers board of directors isn't willing to drop what is essentially a peanut on the floor to get it done rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it makes way more sense to me, even at a Dark Horse or an Image or an IDW, which all of those publishers are actually more likely to have it in the can ahead of time than Marvel or DC are, even though it's a bigger risk for them.
Well, and what's even more infuriating is when you think about, like, going way back, like when I was a kid, stuff like Camelot 3000, it
Right,
ran incredibly late. Like the final issue, I think there were probably a 4 month gap or whatever, between, or maybe 6 months. But who
right.
cares? Like now you've got the entire book drawn by the same team. Whereas sometimes, we've kind of entered a world now where modern comics is like, oh, that artist needs a break, get a fill in,
Right,
and then the book you end up getting on your bookshelf falls apart because it's drawn by
right.
two different people or something. And
Well, and we've stopped to, I mean, like, and this is a great place to bring up Shelley again, because Shelley told a story at CXC a couple of years ago about when she hired J.H. Williams, and everybody was like, he's slow. And she's like, but he's brilliant. Well, but he's slow. So she called him up and she said, how long will it take you to do an issue? He's like, I can get it done in 4 weeks. She's like, no, 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 no. Don't tell me what I want to hear.
yeah.
Tell me how long it will take to get it done the way you want to get it done. He's like, 6 to 8 weeks. She's like, okay. And she picked up the phone and she called an author that I'm not going to name today because, well, he's had a rough year in ways that I neither want to pile onto or want to absolve him for. But she called up an author of this very famous book and she said, hey, I need 4 fill-in issues. I need 4 one-shot issues. because this is the way we're going to do this next arc. You're going to do these three issues. We're going to have a one shot. We're going to do these three issues. We're going to have a one shot. And that in that way, she was able to manage to set it up so her artist was able to work at the pace that he did his best work, and the story was
Which,
still
yeah,
great.
and a guy like J.H. Williams is worth waiting as
Hmm.
long as he possibly needs on something. Like, find that guy
Yeah.
just a uniquely amazing talent. So yeah, and
I
again, like
mean,
it's that kind of sort of
yeah.
ability to manage the schedule or manage whatever the process might be that made me think Shelley was going to be the
Right.
right fit for whatever
Oh
she might
yeah.
want to do next.
I mean, Tom King tells a similar story about his Batman run, where the biggest reason that you have the nightmare segment was you could have six one shots because he knew he wanted Michael Yanin for that
Hmm.
whole like 8 to 12 issue ending, and knew he needed to give him runway. But then on the flip side, Chip Zdarsky did that in his Batman, and with his Joker year one
Yeah.
thing. And DC went, "Oh, this is great. We're going to go weekly rather than monthly." And he's like, "So I wound up buying him 2 weeks rather than 2 months."
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't you understand creativity? and
I mean,
I
I
and I
think the
know
more anybody
that's
can,
way above the editorial level.
but it shouldn't be, you know, because
It
that's all
shouldn't.
part of it is building in like a realistic schedule so nobody's trying to make comics at an inhuman pace because that's going to eventually end badly.
Right.
So you build in stuff like even like back with Starman would have the times past issues drawn by somebody else to give Tony Harris a
Hmm.
break. Like
Yep.
knowing that people are going to need breaks and that they can't just pump out 240 pages a year without something getting in the way and derailing that.
Don't
Like,
tell Jacob that.
yeah, yeah,
Actually, I think he worked it out. Last year, he only did something like 60 pages, but he colored, I think, 270, something like he puts up his year-end stats every year. And I sit there going, "Do you sleep?"
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I got off track. What's your editorial philosophy? What do you strive for when you're editing versus when you're making a book? Well, not obviously you're making a book when you're editing.
Yeah.
When you're editing versus writing a book, what's
I mean, it kind of the same role as like watching Coppola direct. You know, he was such a gentle hand with everybody until there was a scene where he felt strongly about something, you know, and then really needed to make sure that they understood here's what this has to be. But I think just trying to get the best work out of people, and you're never going to get that if you're yelling at them, if you're haranguing them, if you're second guessing everything, if you're making tiny tweaks and changes just to sort of establish that you're the in charge. You know, I've never been that guy, and I could care less about being that guy. Like I'd rather find ways to sort of bring out the best in the entire team and just make sure that the story is as coherent as it should be, that everything's flowing properly. You know, there's like every project kind of has its own specific needs. Every creative team has its own specific needs, but for the most part, it's like what's the path that's going to sort of bring the best out of everybody and make this the best working situation for everyone.
okay? I like it. What's your favorite part of editing? Because the editing job is the one where you get to wear the most different hats.
Yeah, and I think it's probably that is probably being able to have input into all the different parts of it. You know, the lettering style, the logo on the book, the design of things like I don't know the credits page or the collected edition, as well as working with the writer on the script, getting the pages coming in. I mean, there's really nothing better than a new page showing up in your inbox. Like that is for everybody in the business. Like that's kind of the best part is just seeing the artist bring something to life in such a cool way. Um, but yeah, I think it's that it's kind of being the ringleader, the person that's wrangling and sort of pulling all the different parts together to make the cool final product.
Yeah. We're starting to run up on time, and I don't want to keep you
Ah,
too long. well, no, I have two relatively in-depth questions that are my closing questions. One of them I already gave you, and you've had time to think about it. So I'm not trying to kill this now. I'm saying I'm gonna beg you to come back to talk to Daredevil in a bigger conversation after I've read the book because I love Daredevil, I love Mazzucchelli, I love Frank Miller. So like we could spend all of this time on Daredevil too. So rather than
I
spend
was going to say that Born Again probably worked for you, knowing that you like all those things.
well, I mean this is and like I would wind up probably trying to bring a group together and make it either a round table or a book club
Hmm.
to talk Daredevil too because I know a lot of other people who love Daredevil and love some of the same things. In fact, Joe Illidge and I have a back and forth because he thinks Born Again is the best Daredevil ever, and the second best Mazzucchelli ever behind um, Asterios Polyp, and I think that Born Again is the second best Daredevil ever, and the second best Mazzucchelli Daredevil after the one shots or loosely connected O'Neill Mazzucchelli Daredevil that comes between Miller's run and Born Again.
Well, at
Because
least one of you is right.
the, probably him in your opinion, but I love how much the fact that they weren't tied into and part of this is an editorial thing. I don't think they thought Miller was going away for that period, so they were kind of scrambling, which is how O'Neill went from being the Daredevil editor to being the Daredevil writer in an era where Marvel didn't like their editors to do writing.
Oh, they knew he was going away, Miller, but they didn't think he was coming back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But just the way that period worked out, I don't feel like they realized he was going away that soon. I mean,
Right.
191 is a great. They clearly knew with 191 that that was his last issue. I
Yeah.
don't know that if they knew at 190 that 191 was going to be his last issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Is how it feels because there's a lot of kind of searching around, but in that I think David Mazzucchelli got to do some of his absolutely most inventive superhero artwork ever.
He did. So it's funny because when he first started, like he was probably what, 23, 24.
Something like
He was
that.
some
Yeah, he
yeah,
was
so
young.
he was raw and he was also his pencils were kind of buried at times by Danny Bulanati, but every now and then you would see this panel. And I remember the one that won me over was it was in the issue that Harlan Ellison wrote. With the big house,
Uh
the
huh. Uh huh.
Deathstalker's
Uh huh.
mother or something. And there was this amazing shot of this house, the sprawling estate. And I was like, that's a crazy impressive piece of art. Like this guy's got something more going on than what you first thought when you saw him. And then once he started inking his own stuff, before Born
Hmm.
Again, but when he was doing like the story set in the past in the Old West, it's like,
Right.
oh, this guy is amazing already.
Right.
And just watching how quickly he developed at such a young age
Hmm.
was it was a
Hmm.
blast.
Hmm. See, then this is what I'm saying. At some point, we need to get you, me, Joe Illidge, Sherman Alexi's a big Daredevil guy.
Alex
Um,
Segura would be good to
Alex
add to
Segura
this.
is a big.
Yeah,
We need to get the Daredevil crew together and totally geek out over this run.
yes, I'll set aside 3 to 4 hours for that.
So rather than die, I will plug the book because I picked it up and I flipped through it today.
I'll
It's
even show it.
yeah, it's Born Again, the Marvel Age of Comics, Daredevil Born Again by Chris Ryall, and it's uh, uh I don't quite want to say a scholarly take because it feels like it's supposed to be more accessible than your average scholarly writing. Um,
Right.
but
It's not a university press kind of book, but it was trying
right,
to tread the line between opinion and it was trying to approach scholarly without stepping over that line, which was never
right,
a concern of mine
right,
anyway. So
right. Though I will say, have you read Ryan K. Lindsay's Daredevil
no.
scholarly book? Oh, he
Mm-mm.
wrote a good one. Yeah, I'll try to
Mm.
send you a link. He's a heck of a writer too.
I agree. Yeah.
um, So, but we will. We'll wrap up with my two closing questions. The
Mm,
first, obviously, other than the Coppola Rodriguez stuff that we've already gotten to, I've been doing this for only like 4+ years, and already I feel like my life has become an episode, and like the best episode of the Twilight Zone, where like even as the world burns down, I'm like, my life is awesome. I just
mm.
texted with blank to rib him because his baseball team is losing.
Yeah, right.
Blank just sent me a picture of the kid that his wife had 10 minutes ago. Um, Never mind just the random like I mean, I still remember the first time like I handed a business card to somebody at a con where they knew who I was,
Mm.
even though I had, where they looked at the card and they went 22 panels. You guys are great. And I'm like, you know, I thought only my mom listened. Like you, um,
Yeah, it's
but the more time I spend in comics, the more I realize that it doesn't matter who you are, how much success you've had, etc. Um, you have these stories. So I've started asking people to tell me a story, tell me a
all
moment
right.
in comics where it's just like, fuck, how did that happen?
Well, I mean, part of it is for me, it's weird to be friends with guys that I grew up just loving their stuff. And I mean, that's
Hmm.
the same thing that a lot of us have discovered and enjoyed, is getting to know the people that told these stories that have meant so much to us over, the course of our lives. So
Right.
that in itself, like getting to know and or collaborate with or have John Byrne do a cover for me
Right.
and be a guy that I can call a friend is still so weird. Because he was really the first guy that as a kid, I I recognized that there was something better about his style than the other comics I was reading. Everything else kind of had a similar sort of look and feel to it to me as a little kid. But even at 5 or 6 or 7, whatever age I was like, there's something I like more about this. And so he was the first superstar in my mind. And so to go from that to then, like I say, being friendly with him, but that's also a thing that I think a lot of people experience, because comics is way more accessible than
Yeah, but it's
film
still
or
not something
music.
that
And
people not in comics experience. So it counts as the surreal.
yeah, and so this is
The,
this
the
this one
10-year-old self wouldn't believe that you were one day going to be friends with John Byrne.
totally right. Or like Stan Lee wrote an introduction for one of my books, and when I was a
Right.
kid and I'm reading a Stan Lee book, I'm like, I'll never even be in the same room as that guy, let alone
Right.
have any kind of personal thing with him. But the one that stands out for me in the weird way that it makes me think of, you ever see The Simpsons where they go to New York and Bart's whole thing is like, I want to go to Mad Magazine. I want to go to the Mad Magazine offices. And so what he's
Yes.
envisioning is opening the door and there's Spy versus Spy and a Don Martin
Right.
character jumping around and just like, so I was doing this book with Clive Barker. I was doing the Great and Secret Show, and Clive was a guy who I read when I was younger. I remember Stephen King calling him the new voice or in horror, the new face of horror, whatever it was. That he was the next big thing. And so as a young Stephen King fan, I started reading Clive Barker stuff and just loved what he was doing. So it was weird enough to be doing a book with him. And he was another guy like Coppola, where he would just go, tell the story you want to tell. I don't worry about what you think I wanted. I want it to be your version. So that was cool enough, but there was a time I went to his house and he was in the back. So he said, I'll be in the back painting. Just come on in. And in one room, there were all these people getting body painted, fully nude body, getting body painted for a photo shoot that was going to go on. And then the bathroom door opens and Tony Todd Candyman walks out and just walks out the front door and just goes on his way. And I'm just like, I just walked into a Clive Barker book. And it was just so surreal that like every room there was something weird and cool that I never would have envisioned before, all just
Right.
like going on around me. And it was just one of those, I was like, huh, this is pretty great.
That sounds amazing. Sounds amazing.
Just that like Tony Todd just came out, didn't say a word, just kind of did the little head nod acknowledgement,
Yeah.
and then just went on his way. And I'm like, well, of course, Candyman would just be using Clive's
Yeah.
bathroom, and
You're here, he's here, you're both in the right spot,
yeah,
whatever.
so yeah, there's things like that. I mean, like it's like anything, it's a hard business and there are the ups and
Right.
downs, but the ups are the stuff that you try to like cling to because stuff like that
Yeah.
is just so far beyond what I would have envisioned as a young kid reading comics.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, again, like, and I tell a lot of them on the air, which is, I mean, I'm holding them in more for the listeners not hearing them than because I don't want to name drop with you, but like, I get the feeling because it's like, I mean, one of the weirdest things, I mean, in the short version, one of the weirdest things for me is like, I consider Dennis Kitchen a good friend. Dennis Kitchen isn't just
Hmm.
somebody that like, I admire his work. Like, Dennis Kitchen, I know of because people whose work I admire Dennis Kitchen's work.
Right.
So it's not
Yeah.
even like
Yeah.
the I grew up on kitchen sink. It's like as I got deeper into the stuff I loved, I discovered that they loved his stuff. And now I've gone to a minor league baseball game with him because we were
Yeah.
hanging out and wanted to watch a baseball game, and that was what was available. The Brewers were out of
It's
town.
it's weird. And that I so which is what's also made me kind of feel a responsibility to give back wherever I can because
Right.
like we're getting to know and work with these foundational people that help build this business. So it's like I either want to try to hire them or work with them when I can, or conversely try to do the same for the next generation
Yeah.
and help
Find that
other
next.
people
I mean,
find footing.
Zoe Thorogood.
I mean, I think Zoe was pretty well on her way without
Well,
without
yeah,
any need of a push, but
Rain was still like her second big work. And like the impending blindness of Billy, and I always forget the last name because I'm bad with like, but you know the book. Everybody knows the book.
yeah, oh yeah, of course.
That was incredibly well regarded.
Yeah,
It didn't light up the sales charts.
right.
There is an element where Rain was her coming out party.
I mean, I like to think so, and I certainly think that's what helped lead to Image publishing her next book, which was the one that sort of cemented
It's
her spot
lonely
in
at the
comics.
center of the earth. We have had an entire roundtable with psychiatrists at all to talk about that book because it's brilliant both as a comic book and as just a piece of literature and um
On its surface, it
book
shouldn't have
that
worked, because it's like when somebody goes, "I'm 23 and I'm doing an autobiographical story." You're like, "You haven't even done anything yet." Like how could you
but
possibly
she
have such an
acknowledges that and that's part of what makes it work.
and but also like her understanding of the craft and like all the different parts
Mhm.
of what makes comics so great. Like that book was just jaw dropping, like so
Yeah.
impressive, so far above and beyond what I would have expected. And even then, like even with the impending blindness, like I already
Yeah.
thought she was great. And but that book
Yeah.
was such a leap forward. It was
Yeah.
yeah, she's another one that I
No,
think is
she
not only fun to
she's
watch, but well, the other thing I think I'm always really impressed by with her is she had all kinds of offers, and probably more than any of us are aware of to do Marvel and DC stuff and
mhm.
be just another person doing another version of an existing character. But she was a fan of Hack Slash, so she went and did this great
Right.
Hack Slash book, and
Oh,
so she's already
I
at the point where
I
she's just doing what
I
she
I
wants
love
and
Hack
making the right
Slash. I know
decisions.
Tim Seeley, and that's still hands down my favorite Hack Slash. She didn't just go do a Hack Slash book. She like went
Yeah,
and dropped the mic on a Hack Slash book.
yeah. So I'm impressed by that kind of thing. The people that have sort of
Right.
the foresight to make such smart decisions when they're probably getting dangled bags of cash over here that
Yeah,
for stuff that maybe isn't what they want to do.
I was so excited when I saw her on the C2E2 guest list because I
Hmm.
haven't gotten to talk to her yet, and now
Yeah,
I know where to find her at the end of March. And if I have to wait in line to say hello, I will wait in line to say hello.
that show is the same weekend as WonderCon out here. I'm like,
I
why are
know
they
it
the same
is.
weekend? Yeah.
I don't know, but it's really frustrating because I actually have four panels at C2E2, including
Hmm.
one that I might see how many different people I can get to show up and be a part of it, even though everybody says that panels with more than five people don't work. I think I have an idea for essentially a celebration of comics panel, and somehow they
Hmm.
approved it. But
Well, I
all of
think
my
as long as
California plans where friends won't be traveling because they're like, why would I get on a plane to cold Chicago when I can sleep in my own house and go to WonderCon?
yeah, it's a bummer because they're both great shows, but so it goes.
All right, last question. This is one of my favorite questions to ask, and it's been my
All
last
right.
question. Like, I think you're the 292nd interview episode we've had. Obviously, we've had some repeat ones, but I ask this one at everyone, if not since the first, certainly since like the fifth or sixth. Um, Tell me something you love, preferably a comic, but we don't have rules. Preferably storytelling, but again with the rules, but something that you love that not enough people around you have experienced and you really, really want them to because you need more people to talk about it with.
Well, I mean, obviously, my easy answer is ROM, so I'm not going to take the easy answer. Um,
I mean, I'll put Rom down for you.
no, no, I've probably talked about
You're
that one
allowed to
enough.
have more than one.
Yeah, yeah. God, what do
It's
I
the
love that not in?
variation on the underrated because I
Yeah,
don't want it to just be under. I mean, like you can, Nate Powell actually wound up telling me uh, Jonathan Hickman's X-Men, which is not that nobody was reading X-Men, but not the group of indie creators that Nate Powell
mm,
hangs out with.
yeah, sure.
Andrew
All
Iden said
right.
his tomato garden. So, I mean, we allow
Oh,
anything.
interesting. Hmm. No, I want to
He's
keep it
really
to
proud of his
comics, but
tomatoes. I really want to go to North Carolina this summer just to have one of Andrew Iden's
ride his
tomatoes.
tractor with him, and yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, when I talked to Kelly Sudaconic, she said that she and Matt went out and spent some time with him, and he did. He took them around on his tractor.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So that I mean, I don't know if you know Andrew Iden, but that wasn't a
Oh,
joke.
I
He
do. Yeah,
really does.
I know.
You do know Andrew. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we did March together back when
Oh, that's right. You were part of
yeah.
March too. I'm sorry.
Um
You've been around so
no.
much, I forgot that you were part of March.
No, I mean that was another Chris anyway who kind of ran direct point on it. It was Chris
Right.
Staros that
Right.
yeah, I've got to know him well over the last
Oh,
decade-ish.
he's such a good guy.
Um
Such a good guy.
he yeah. But let me think. It's funny. I'm like, can you tell I'm like scanning my bookshelves to see
Oh, I'm totally used to it. I'm surprised you haven't looked behind you too.
I just figured
Because
that's
those are the
not great
books that I
stuff.
can see. I had to assume that there were also books in front of you because you were looking.
Um
It's the standard response when I ask this question is people either start looking around them or they run off screen and come back with something.
Okay, no, here's one. Here's one. And it's certainly not a new pick, but it was new to me because I was a Marvel kid. So
Okay.
I grew up reading comics that my older brother already had. He only read Marvels. And so I didn't get into DC until Crisis. That was probably
Right.
I basically followed Wolfman and Perez from Marvel to DC. Um, but I have no real strong knowledge of like DC's history beyond sort of the obvious stuff or the reprint stuff or like Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, that
Right.
kind of like the stuff that's been reprinted. I'm certainly aware
Right.
of, but I don't know. I don't know the 60s, 70s DC at all, or let alone the stuff before that. So, long way of getting to my answer, which is the art and especially the covers of Nick Cardy. Um, Nick Cardy is amazing, and he's done these great covers for DC that if you look at most of them, they completely look like modern, cool, like sort of striking images with like not only great art but amazing color, cool composition. Like he was doing stuff where he was changing up the logos in an era where they often didn't allow that. Like I have a whole one of the Spinner X slots is all Nick Cardy covers. Um, and he was doing stuff like the Teen Titans covers or Aquaman, like not the biggest selling DC books, but I'm a total convert to his stuff. And I'd only really discovered over the last couple of years. And so it's not really a recommendation of anything for anyone to go read, but certainly to look up. I feel like there needs to be a big Art of Nick Cardy book because he seems like one of those guys that's kind of unsung, but has done just some of the coolest stuff that I just think has kind of been forgotten about.
I feel like, and I'm now searching for his blog because I
Okay, this
feel
probably
like,
isn't this isn't great visual, but let me, if you'll bear
yeah.
with. All right. All right. These were done like 50, 60 years ago, and
Oh,
like they're so great. And
yeah.
again, like there's probably all kinds of people who are DC fans that are going, yeah, yeah, we know about Nick Cardy, but I didn't. And I've just been like discovering these and grabbing them because I'm just so taken by like his use of color and composition. And I just like this kind of style feels like it could be a compelling cover today. Like this one I think is probably one of his more famous ones that people sort of showcase a lot, but I don't know. I'm just Nick Cardy is my answer. There's probably others, but like I can't get enough of this
Oh
stuff, like how
no,
good it is.
Nick Cardy is fantastic,
So
and
let's
I'm
see.
I'm frustrated that Clem Robbins'
Yeah, these
blog
colors.
seems to be broken right now because one of the last
Mm,
times I had him on, he wrote a two-part essay on Bob Haney and Nick Cardy that was
mm,
brilliant that I was going to
yeah.
send your direction, but it's currently you click on it and it says we couldn't find the page you're looking for.
Ah,
So so I might reach out to Clem and say, "Hey, do you still have that essay?"
I mean,
um,
Haney was another one who I've only been recently been seeing through like his old Doom Patrol stuff. Again, I never
right.
was aware of that stuff back.
I wasn't either. Like
Yeah.
that there are three reasons that I love talking. Well, four reasons that I love talking to letterers. The first
Mm,
is that they are absolutely among the unsung heroes in comics. I feel relatively confident in saying that I'm the comics podcast that's talked to the most different letterers. I think I'm up to
mm,
five. I've got at least three more on my list that I really would like to talk to. Um, the second is they tend to be the first person who gets to see the comic in its finished form. Sometimes it's the colorist, but more times than not, by the time they when they put the words on is when the page is done.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Although I
So
love
it's
that the cat was going for your microphone.
yeah. But then the other big thing that I love is like some of the biggest comics geeks I know are letterers. They know so
Mm,
much about so many, and because Clem's been at it forever, he knows about eras that I've never even thought about. It's like,
well,
oh,
it's like if somebody mentions how much they like Gaspar Saladino's work, you're like, oh, that's somebody who really knows their
that's
comics because
that's somebody that I didn't know about until Clem Robbins. And Clem Robbins actually
mm,
arranged for a big celebration at Gaspar at a con near the end of his life, where he also had, he got Todd Klein to come out, he got Nate
mm.
Picos to come out. It was like all of the top letterers of that era celebrating Gaspar and I think New
I
York
mean, pretty
Comic
much if
Con,
there's a
something
great
like
logo,
that.
if there's an old logo that you love, like Gaspar
Right.
probably created it. What's
Yep.
like my favorite part of the there's the Alex Toth Super Friends Treasury
Yep.
Edition. The best part of that whole book is his lettering.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
the process page in the back that's all just text, and it's gorgeous. Like that lettering
Yeah.
is just it's a work of art on itself. So yeah, I'm with you. And again, it's those kind of things that I think make comics so special.
Oh God. I mean, I one of the most fun conversations, and I hate that he's A, so busy, and B, in England, which makes it that much harder to set up a conversation with a busy person. Because time differences, but I got to talk to Hassan Otsman El How about
No,
lettering and all the things he does. And
that cover he did that is all just word balloons and fonts and stuff is so great. He was actually
yep.
the guy that was going to I was going to have him letter Megalopolis, but just
Right.
schedules couldn't quite align. But I
Yep.
think he's amazing. In fact, he lettered my the book that I published under my imprint with Alex Packnadel and
I love Alex
Caspar
Packnettle
Wingard's.
too.
Yeah,
Was
so
that, did you
he and
do,
Caspar Wingard did All Against All,
I was about to
which was under
say,
my
you guys did. You were the editor on all. See, I didn't do my research as well as I should have, Chris. I was
that was one of the early books I
so
put out under my imprinted image. Yeah.
yeah, I was so like focused on Megalopolis because A, it's really, really good. B,
That's awesome.
I feel unfortunately safe in saying that I'm in a minority shouting from the rooftops that it's really, really good. I mean, I
Yeah,
apologize. It wound up, you fell victim to the fact that I'm in love with threes. It was probably my fourth favorite graphic novel of last year. So that was the other
mm,
reason that I had to have you on is I didn't list it as one of my favorite graphic novels of the year. It was The Last Cut.
oh man,
If you care, you lost out to Jesse Lonergan's Drome,
fair.
um, Meredith McLaren's Meat Eaters,
All
and
right, all right.
Christopher Cantwell and Victor Santos's Kid Maroon. Those are
Yeah,
the
how great is Victor too?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And that Kid Maroon is another book that I think I'm the only one screaming about, and it's for similar reasons. Like you can read Kid Maroon and go, I don't know what they're doing here. Is this supposed to be funny? But like if you start thinking about Kid Maroon, it is social commentary, satire, humor on so many fucking levels. It's not even funny. It's just
I don't know it. I'm
brilliant.
gonna have to look that up.
It was supposed to be a 5 issue series at Vault. It fell by the wayside, and then they finally brought it out as a graphic novel. It kind of it's one of the books that got really kind of jobbed by the Diamond bankruptcy
Hmm.
because it was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then it became a graphic novel rather than a miniseries. And
Yeah, yeah.
but I mean,
That's a great team though.
Chris even did I mean, I remember he sent me the press release probably a month before they put it out, even because he did it up like they were actually resurrecting an old
Hmm.
news strip character. So he wrote up like a newspaper type press release to make it feel like and there's so many Easter eggs even in the press release where it's like, oh, I know where that like initial. I mean, even me and Chris is a friend of mine. Like the first paragraph, I'm like, oh, is this another one of those cool weird things that Chris knows about and I don't? And it took me like till the second read to go, oh, the press release is also part of the joke.
Oh, good. Nice.
So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. Kid Maroon from Vault Comics. Um, but Megalopolis from Abrams, right? Did I get that right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Abrams Comic Arts. People should read it. I actually also recommend the movie. I assume even if you don't recommend the movie, you're not willing to say so. But tell me off air what you thought of the movie, because I'm
Oh no,
actually
I'm happy to talk about the movie.
okay.
I mean, it was one of the weirdest movies I've seen in years, and I love that it's a movie that was allowed to be as weird as it wanted to be, like
Yeah.
that he made the movie he wanted to make after all that time. You know, he didn't
Well,
worry
I mean,
about
it is the most expensive independent movie ever.
there's that, but yeah, removing even the money that he no doubt lost on it, like just the
I
fact that
hope
he
that long term he doesn't. I think it's one of those movies that every year there's going to be more people that realize they like it.
that's exactly what he wants. He wants it to be that and be a thing that people discover. But
Yeah,
I just love that it exists in a world where every or so many different movies feel focus group to death and
right.
sort of I don't know predictable and all that. And this was just whatever he wanted it to be with no other concerns other than making
But
the
it
art
was
that he wanted to
also
make.
a really cool vision. Yeah, like we
Yeah,
didn't get
yeah,
into the stuff on the book earlier, and I won't keep you for too much longer, but like between he clearly knows his Roman history. He clearly has been paying attention in the United States and the world for the last 50 years. He clearly knows his Shakespeare. He puts it all into this and weaves it together in a way that again, if you're not paying attention, can feel disjointed and like I get the reason why it's not as popular as it should be right yet. It doesn't allow you to watch it passively. It
right.
requires active interaction with it. It requires you to think about it. It might even require you to go, that name feels familiar. Let me go look at some stuff. Oh, you know, but the more of that you do, the better it becomes. And I think the
Yeah, yeah.
acting, like as much as people have, I, I've seen so many bad reviews of the acting, and I'm sitting there going, "Are we watching the same movie? This is brilliant."
Yeah, it's funny. I think people get so used to things all feeling similar that when something doesn't, they don't know what to make of it. And I think
Right.
that's what's great about it.
Well, and I think it was a double whammy um because it's Coppola, they thought they knew what they were going to get.
Right.
You know, I just watched Begonia, and it has a
I
lot of the. Did you see that too?
Funny, I was just going to compare it to that actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, but but overall, it's gotten the reverse reception. People are like, "Oh, that's cool and weird," rather
Yeah.
than "What are you trying to do?" I mean, Begonia has a 7.4 rating on IMDb, and Megalopolis has a 4 point something. And I'm sitting there going, like, these movies actually feel really similar to me. And I don't
Yeah, I
know
think
that I
that's a good
think
comp.
Begonia is the better one. Begonia is
Yeah.
a great movie. I'm not saying that it's absolutely not the better one, but I don't know that it's like automatically the better one. And I certainly don't know that it's twice as good at doing it.
Well, but it's funny because I think Begonia was the more straightforward version of the kind of movies he makes, whereas Megalopolis was the opposite of that. It was
Well,
like
and that's
the farthest afield from the straightforward movies that people
right.
want Coppola to make.
And that was actually the exact point I was going to make is that you're from Yorgos Lanthimos,
Lanthimos,
that
yeah.
Lanthimos. That's essentially what people expect. They expect a weird movie that they have to think about a little bit and whatnot. And like even Coppola's absolute best work, nobody would necessarily describe as a weird movie that you have to think about to get.
Yeah, yeah.
Apocalypse Now is brilliant, and there's things that to think about it. The Godfather is brilliant. I'm actually somebody that says, like, the biggest shame of The Godfather Part 3 is The Godfather. Because if it wasn't called The Godfather Part 3, people would talk about it as being
Mm,
a really, really good movie. The problem is,
yeah,
it's not nearly as good as Godfather Part 1 and Godfather Part 2.
sure.
you know and I think that's what happened with this movie is everybody had like this is what we expect from Coppola, and then it really 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 wasn't, which is why I'm really glad that I read your comic first, because it also changed what I was looking for from the movie. It's like,
Yeah, I love
okay,
that. I
this
love
is a
that. That's the way
weird
you,
and awesome story, so I need to go into watching the movie from a really open standpoint and just try to watch it as its own thing rather than Francis Ford Coppola's magnum opus.
right. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, um, Chris, it has been an absolute blast. We will definitely have to do this again. And like I said, we got to get
I
together
hope
and like
so.
dig into Daredevil sometime. Um, so for 22 panels, it's been Chris Ryall, and we will see you after the next page.